I used to think we had the perfect life. From the outside, everything looked right. The house with the white picket fence, the two beautiful children, the laughter that filled the rooms during birthday parties and Thanksgiving dinners. We were the American dream, at least. That's what I told myself every night when I pulled the covers over my body, feeling the cold absence of my husband beside me. It hadn't always been like that. In the beginning, he made me feel like I was the only woman in the world. The way his eyes lit up when I entered the room, the way he pulled me closer even when we were surrounded by friends. His promises were embroidered into the fabric of my soul, forever, no matter what, he whispered on our wedding night, his hands trembling with something that felt like love. But forever has a funny way of fading. It started small, almost unnoticeably. A missed call here, a late meeting there. Excuses wrapped so tightly in sincerity that I swallowed them whole without question. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. Over time, the late nights became more frequent. The kisses goodbye became mechanical, like pressing a button out of obligation. I would watch him drive away through the kitchen window, a familiar ache blooming in my chest, but I buried it under grocery lists, PTA meetings, and soccer games. Life had a way of demanding too much for me to sit still and listen to that gnawing voice inside. I convinced myself it was normal. All marriages settle into routine, right? All passion eventually gives way to something quieter, something steadier. That's what I told myself every time I sat alone at our dining table, pushing peas around my plate. But deep down, I knew. I knew that love doesn't just dissolve like sugar in water without a reason. It rots. It erodes. And so one night, after another lonely dinner and another lie about working late, I sat at the edge of our bed and made a decision that would change everything. I would find out the truth. Not by asking him, because lies slip too easily from his lips now, but by seeing it with my own eyes. Hearing it with my own ears. I ordered a few hidden cameras online. Nothing fancy, small enough to tuck into the corner of the living room, a device I could link to my phone. I felt sick doing it, like I was the one betraying him somehow. But when trust is already dead, can betrayal even exist? My hands shook when I installed the first camera behind a framed photo of our wedding day. Ironic, isn't it? The smiling faces of two fools in love, now guarding the evidence of a love gone rotten. I told myself I might find nothing. I prayed I would find nothing. But a part of me, a part that had been screaming in silence for years, knew better. This wasn't paranoia. This was survival. As I laid in bed that night, staring at the ceiling fan spinning lazily above, I felt something unfamiliar stirring inside me. Not fear. Not sadness. Resolve. Because if I was going to lose the life I thought I had, I would do it with my eyes wide open. The first few days after setting up the cameras, I lived in a strange fog, part guilt, part anticipation. Every time my phone buzzed with an alert from the surveillance app, my heart seized in my chest. At first, it was innocent. Harmless. I watched him slump onto the couch after work, beer in hand, flipping through channels. I watched him take lazy bites of dinner leftovers, watched him scroll endlessly through his phone, face blank and bored. It almost made me feel ashamed, watching him like some desperate stranger. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the loneliness was just in my head. But then came Thursday night. It started with a phone call. I wasn't supposed to be home. I had told him I was having dinner with an old friend across town. Instead, I sat silently in my car parked 2 streets away, my palms sweating, my heart racing, my mind torn between hoping he would betray me and hoping he wouldn't. Through the tiny lens of the camera, I watched him answer the phone, a smile blooming across his face, the kind of smile I hadn't seen directed at me in years. His voice softened, almost boyish. He laughed, that laugh I used to love. And then he said it. "I miss you too. Can't wait to see you." I bit down so hard on my lip that I tasted blood. He paced the living room like a teenager on a secret call, glancing around even though he was alone. He was animated, alive, giddy. Emotions he had long ago stopped showing me. I sat there for hours, even after he hung up, even after he went to bed. My body felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. The betrayal wasn't sharp yet, it was slow, like a toxin seeping through my veins. The next day, I didn't confront him. I couldn't. Instead, I smiled. I made his coffee just the way he liked it. I kissed him on the cheek when he left for work. All while a storm brewed silently inside me. Because now, I needed more. I needed proof so irrefutable, so damning, that even he couldn't weasel his way out of it. I added a second camera, this time in his car. It was trickier, riskier, but the need to know burned hotter than fear. I hid the device under the passenger seat, angled perfectly toward the driver. Days bled into nights. I watched him. Watched him drive to work. Watched him drive back. Routine. Predictable. Until Saturday afternoon. He told me he was going to the hardware store to pick up supplies for a home project he had suddenly taken interest in. I nodded, playing my part. But he never made it to the hardware store. Instead, he drove to a small, nondescript house on the other side of town. I watched through the camera, breathless, as he parked and stayed in the car for a few minutes, checking his reflection in the rearview mirror, fixing his hair. Then, a woman opened the front door. She was younger than me. Prettier, maybe. Or maybe it was just the way she looked at him, with adoration, the way I used to. He got out of the car, jogged up the steps, and kissed her. Full on the mouth. Not a hesitant kiss. Not a guilty kiss. A kiss that said you're the one. And just like that, something inside me shattered. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was right. All those sleepless nights, all those gut instincts I buried under layers of denial, they weren't imagined. They were warning signs I had been too scared to heed. He didn't love me anymore. Maybe he hadn't for a very long time. As I watched him disappear into that house, my wedding ring burned against my skin like a brand. The promises we made, the family we built, the life we dreamed of, it all crumbled before my eyes. And still, I didn't cry. Not yet. There was more I needed to know. There was a deeper betrayal lurking beneath the surface. I could feel it. This wasn't just about another woman. This was about lies so deep, so tangled, that they would tear apart everything I thought I knew. And for the first time in a long, long while, I wasn't afraid to uncover the truth. I was ready. After that Saturday, nothing looked the same. Not my house. Not my marriage. Not even my own reflection. I moved through the motions of life like a ghost, smiling at the neighbors, packing the kids' lunches, nodding along to meaningless conversations at the grocery store. All the while, a bitter truth gnawed at the back of my mind, like rats tearing at the beams of a once beautiful home. I had evidence now. I could have confronted him. I could have screamed, thrown things, demanded answers. But something inside me whispered, not yet. There's more. I needed to know the whole truth before I set my world on fire. So I did what any desperate woman would do. I hired a private investigator. He was a wiry man in his 60s with sharp eyes and a voice like gravel. He didn't flinch when I told him everything. He simply nodded, slid a plain notebook across the table, and said, "Write down every suspicion you have. Every name. Every place. Every lie you can remember." I wrote until my hand cramped. It didn't take him long. 3 days later, he handed me a manila envelope. Inside were photos, phone records, bank statements. And something worse. Much worse. There was a birth certificate. A child. A son. Born exactly 9 years ago. Conceived while I was pregnant with our second daughter. The dates aligned so perfectly it made me sick. While I was decorating a nursery and reading parenting books, he was building another life with another woman. And the boy. God, the boy looked just like my husband. Same brown eyes. Same crooked smile. I pressed the photo against my chest, squeezing my eyes shut, willing the image to disappear. But the truth doesn't vanish when you close your eyes. It waits. It festers. I flipped through the documents with trembling hands. There were wire transfers, regular monthly payments to a woman's account. Thousands of dollars over the years, siphoned out of our savings, the money I thought we were setting aside for college funds, for family vacations, for growing old together. All of it, bleeding into another life. Another family. And the final blow? The woman he was seeing now, the one from the tiny house across town, she wasn't new. She was the mother of his child. He had never left her. Not really. While I built birthday parties and packed school lunches and stayed up late worrying about fevers and math tests, he had been slipping away to them. Feeding 2 lives with the same sweet lies. The enormity of it crushed me. 9 years. 9 years of my life. 9 years of loving a man who wasn't really mine. I sat alone in the dark, the envelope spread across the coffee table like a crime scene, the clock ticking louder with each passing second. How do you mourn a life that was never truly yours? I wanted to scream. I wanted to smash every framed photo in the house, every memory tainted by his betrayal. But I didn't. Instead, I sat there, silent and still, as the reality sank its claws deeper into me. He had chosen her. He had chosen them. And all these years, I had been nothing more than a convenience, a polished lie to parade around, a mask to hide the rot underneath. The next morning, I looked at him differently. When he kissed my cheek goodbye, I didn't flinch. When he told me he loved me, I smiled. Because now, I knew the truth. And soon, very soon, he would know that I knew. And when that day came, I wouldn't be the one left broken. I didn't plan some grand confrontation. No slamming doors. No throwing his clothes out onto the front lawn. I waited. Because sometimes, silence cuts deeper than any scream. It was a Tuesday night, quiet, unremarkable, the kind of night when life pretends to be ordinary. The kids were asleep, the house hummed with the soft buzz of the dishwasher, and he walked through the front door like nothing was wrong. He kissed my forehead, dropped his keys on the counter, and asked what was for dinner. I smiled. "We need to talk," I said, my voice almost too calm. He froze for just a fraction of a second, a blink, a twitch, but it was enough. His instincts knew. Predators always recognize the moment the tables turn. We sat at the kitchen table, across from each other, the same table where we had once planned vacations, dreamed about growing old, argued over bills and laughed until we cried. Now it felt like a battlefield, and I had all the ammunition. I slid the manila envelope across the table. He stared at it, his face draining of color, hands trembling slightly as he reached for it. He didn't open it. He didn't need to. "How long?" I asked. My voice was so soft it scared even me. He opened his mouth to speak, some pathetic lie, no doubt, but I raised my hand to stop him. "Don't. Just don't. I know everything." And then it happened. He crumbled. Right there, in our bright, cozy kitchen, the man I had once loved more than life itself sank to his knees on the tile floor, sobbing into his hands. Begging. Pleading. "It was a mistake. It didn't mean anything. Please, please don't leave me. I love you. I love our family." I watched him, numb. This was the man I had built my life around? This broken, whimpering stranger? I wanted to feel rage. I wanted to feel triumph. Instead, I felt nothing. Just an endless, echoing emptiness. He grabbed my hands, clutching them desperately like a drowning man. His tears soaked my skin, but they didn't move me. He wasn't crying because he loved me. He was crying because he had been caught. "There's a difference. I can fix this," he choked out. "We can get through this. You and me, please, baby." I pulled my hands away slowly, like peeling off a layer of dead skin. "There's no we anymore," I said. The words were final. Irrevocable. Something shifted in his eyes then, something dark and ugly. He realized, truly realized, that he had lost control. He wasn't the man begging for forgiveness anymore. He was the man who had gambled and lost. Badly. Later that night, as I packed a suitcase with trembling hands, my phone buzzed. A text. From a number I didn't recognize. I hesitated, then opened it. "Guess he's your problem now, sweetheart. He's broke and boring without my money. Good luck." Attached was a picture of her, the woman he had chosen over me, smirking into the camera, triumphant. The final dagger. It wasn't just betrayal. It was mockery. She had used him. Squeezed him dry. And when there was nothing left, she discarded him like yesterday's trash. I laughed then, a hollow, bitter sound that bounced off the empty walls. It wasn't fair. It wasn't just. But it was over. And for the first time in years, I felt something stronger than heartbreak. Freedom. He had shattered our life. But he hadn't shattered me. And when I walked out that door with my suitcase in hand, I promised myself one thing. I would never again beg anyone to love me. Especially not someone so devastatingly unworthy. Walking out that night was supposed to feel like the hardest thing I'd ever done. It wasn't. The hardest thing had been staying all those years. Smiling through the lies. Loving a ghost. Losing myself piece by piece and calling it devotion. Leaving was liberation. I moved into a small apartment on the other side of town, a place with peeling wallpaper and creaky floors, but it was mine. No shared memories lurking in the corners. No phantom touch of betrayal on the doorknobs. Just four walls and a future I hadn't yet decided. At night, I lay in a narrow bed, listening to the hum of distant traffic, feeling the quiet thrum of my own heartbeat, learning to live with the silence. Silence, I found, could be beautiful. It didn't accuse. It didn't betray. It simply existed. He tried to reach out at first. Voicemails, emails, text messages dripping with regret. Promises of therapy, promises of change. He even showed up once outside my building, holding a bouquet of wilted flowers and looking every bit the tragic hero. I didn't open the door. Because the truth was, I no longer needed closure from him. I didn't need his apologies or his explanations. I didn't need to understand why he did what he did. Some things are so small, so mean, so rotten that understanding them only dirties you too. I had spent too many years shrinking myself, doubting myself, trying to patch holes in a boat he was drilling holes into. No more. I started doing small things just for me, things I hadn't done in years. I took long walks through the park, breathing in the crisp fall air. I signed up for an art class at the community center, even though my hands trembled the first time I picked up a brush. I sat in coffee shops with a book, feeling the simple joy of existing without explanation. The kids struggled at first, of course they did. Their world had been split down the middle, and no amount of soft words or joint custody agreements could stitch it back perfectly. But I made them a promise. We are going to be okay. And little by little, we were. Meanwhile, he unraveled. Word trickled back through mutual friends. He lost his job. Sold the house. Fell into debt. The woman, the one who had mocked me, was long gone. Surprise, surprise. I should have felt satisfaction. Some burning, vengeful triumph. But mostly, I felt pity. Not for him. For the boy I used to love. The man who could have been so much more if he hadn't drowned himself in selfishness and cowardice. One evening, about 6 months after I left, I found a letter slipped under my door. It wasn't an apology. It was a plea. I miss you. I miss our life. I'm nothing without you. I sat on the floor, staring at the words, feeling nothing but a quiet, infinite sadness. Because he was right. He was nothing without me. But the beautiful, aching truth was, I was everything without him. I tore the letter in half. And for the first time in what felt like forever, I smiled. Not the brittle smile I had worn for years. Not the polite smile I had practiced for strangers. A real smile. A rebirth. I wasn't the woman who stayed. I wasn't the woman who forgave. I was the woman who chose herself. And I would never, ever look back. Healing isn't a straight line. Some days, I woke up feeling powerful, ready to conquer anything. Other days, I felt the weight of old memories pulling at me like heavy chains, whispering doubts in the back of my mind. But I kept going. Because healing isn't about forgetting the pain, it's about choosing to live fully in spite of it. I built a new life from the ashes of the old one. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't sudden. It was hundreds of tiny victories stitched together, paying bills on my own, fixing a leaky faucet without calling for help, laughing until I cried with friends who refused to let me drown in my past. It was learning to trust myself again. To trust that I could make decisions without fear. To trust that I was enough, all on my own. There were moments, of course, when doubt crept in. Like the first time I attended a school event alone and saw the way the other parents whispered. Or the first time the kids asked why we couldn't all just be together again. Each time, I told myself the same thing. You didn't leave because you were weak. You left because you were finally strong enough to demand better. I started volunteering at a local women's shelter, not because I needed the distraction, but because I wanted to be the voice I had once so desperately needed. I wanted to look another woman in the eye and say, "You are not crazy. You are not alone. And you are stronger than you know." Eventually, I started painting again, not for anyone else, not to be good at it, but because when the colors bled across the canvas, they carried pieces of my soul with them. Pieces that had been locked away for far too long. One rainy afternoon, I stood at the window of my little apartment, coffee in hand, watching the world blur into shades of gray. And for the first time, the memories didn't hurt. They simply existed. A part of my story. But not the whole story. Not the ending. I was the ending. I was the plot twist. The survivor who refused to be written off as a tragedy. And if the past ever came knocking again, if he ever showed up with flowers or tears or empty promises, I knew exactly what I would say. Thank you. Because without his betrayal, I would never have found myself. I would never have discovered the quiet, fierce woman inside me who refused to settle for half love, half truths, and half lives. I finished my coffee, pulled on my jacket, and stepped out into the rain. It didn't matter that the sky was gray. Because inside me, a new dawn had already begun. And this time, it belonged to me. Only me. Forever.